Yeah, y'all can come in. Yeah. Hey, Don. All right. Got plenty of social distancing here. All right, thank you all for joining us today. We are here to inform you that CPS Energy has taken an important legal action to protect its customers from excessive charges related to last month's winter storm event. This morning, CPS Energy filed a lawsuit against the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, better known as ERCOT, suing ERCOT for, among other things, breach of contract, negligence, and violation of the Texas Constitution. This legal action is being taken to protect CPS customers, and we are fully supportive of this action. The injustice of imposing an erroneous, excessive, and unlawful costs on San Antonians who suffered during the storm cannot be allowed. ERCOT and state regulators are presiding over one of the largest illegal transfers of wealth in the history of Texas. ERCOT botched the storm response, and the regulators should be held accountable for their own mistakes. CPS Energy and the City of San Antonio are collectively fighting to ensure that San Antonians get treated fairly. Nothing less is acceptable. ERCOT's poor performance and preventable mistakes leave CPS Energy little choice. Meekly accepting the excessive and illegal burden created by state energy regulators was never considered as an option. ERCOT oversaw the complete and catastrophic failure of the Texas energy market. 6 members of ERCOT's board have since resigned and the CEO was terminated. Clearly, they aren't gone because of a job well done. ERCOT could have proactively acted to ease the pain, and they didn't. They botched the job and created a continuing crisis for millions of Texans who were forced to endure freezing temperatures without power for extended periods of time. State regulators failed miserably to live up to their responsibilities, and now they want you to pay the tab. Overcharging San Antonio residents because of ERCOT's disastrous mismanagement of the state's energy grid is not acceptable. And CPS Energy has acted to make sure that ERCOT doesn't pass the buck to our community. San Antonians must not be saddled with additional harm. The people who suffered because of ERCOT's failure should not also be required to pay for the pain caused by that failure. This lawsuit is a way to prevent that. The legal action today is necessary to ensure the outrageous costs resulting from ERCOT's stunning mishandling of the recent weather crisis winter storm is shouldered by those who are responsible for it. The attorneys who are with us today will be able to discuss the lawsuit's details momentarily. And let me acknowledge those who are here today. We have our chair, Dr. Willis Mackey. We have council members Cabello Haverda and Jada Andrews Sullivan. We also have our CEO, Paula Gold-Williams, and our city attorney, Andy Segovia. We also have our chief litigator with us as well in this case. Let me first turn it over to Paula to make some remarks.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank all of you for being here today. CPS Energy would always rather work through solutions collaboratively. And our goal is always, though, to serve this community. CPS Energy has been run and worked as a neighborhood utility that originated here 161 years ago. And we have been owned by the city of San Antonio for approaching 80 years. We understand that in municipal power, all of the efforts that we do are people first for our employees and for our customers. And our employees worked tremendously hard during this tremendously difficult storm. It was a terrible experience for everyone in San Antonio. Those who had power had challenges, and many people who did not have power for days suffered a terrible experience. And so they went through a reliability crisis unlike anything that we had seen before. And all of Texas was covered by this. We took our instructions, our employees worked diligently, they managed the system and took the instructions that they were given, and we looked and we worried about how this was all going to work out, because we began to see prices in ERCOT and prices for fuel increase. And we raised flags, and the system is designed to accept some volatility, but in the end, all of the volatility goes to customers all across Texas. It was never designed to have people pay the extreme prices for day after day after day. The cost of fuel and energy is basically, when we buy it from ERCOT and others, is a pass-through that helps us provide a whole lot of other services here in San Antonio. And in fact, fuel, we buy it to make energy, and we make no money on that. Basically, these items are bought to serve the community, and it hits customers right in their pockets. After the aftermath of the reliability crisis, we are now working through an affordability tsunami. You've seen across Texas customers getting bills for thousands of dollars. $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, $16,000, and I've heard $20,000 for a monthly bill. We incurred for 5 days about $1 billion of incremental cost. We don't spend that much money in a year. And in the end, it is tremendous for us to have our customers go through the reliability crisis and then give them a bill which never should have gotten that high during a declared disaster. In the end, again, we will pay all of the costs that are reasonable and legitimate. That's what we do. We run a business for this community. These assets belong to our customers, and we run them prudently and we run them well. We have only had one rate increase in 11 years because we understand that affordability is extremely important to all of our customers. But when we get a bill for 5 days and now in the aftermath we're trying to figure out how to work through it, we have to take decisive action to take care of and protect our customers. We are very glad that we've seen elected officials at the state level take this interest up in looking at the aspects of repricing, but it's not just repricing. Because of this event, many utilities across Texas are struggling, and some are failing, and some are going through bankruptcy. And what would typically happen under ERCOT's processes, they would take those costs and they would push them back to every participant in the market, which means customers across Texas and San Antonio could be hit again with a price tag that we cannot yet tabulate. This is outrageous and unconscionable, and we need to get together as a state to make this happen. Our lawsuit is to make sure that people understand it's not just repricing. We need to look at the systemic issues that happen as a result of the storm, the things that didn't work through the pressures that were experienced by a long duration storm, something 5 times bigger than what we've seen before. So the design of the system did not work. The administration of the system did not work. And the customers of San Antonio should not be the ones that pay for those system and design issues. We are fighting for our customers today. We are working towards how do we get that bill down. We have to get that bill down. And I appreciate your time in listening to me today.
Right. So we have, again, our litigator here from the Chasnoff firm. We also have, again, Paul and myself, anybody for questions. So we'll open it up for questions now.
Given that the lion's share of the charges are on the natural gas suppliers and not to ERCOT, is the CPS planning to pursue litigation against some of those natural gas suppliers for price gouging and other violations?
We are looking at all aspects of the $1 billion. You are correct. The bigger number is in the natural gas purchases. ERCOT, we're focused on that because that's still over $300 million that goes to ERCOT, and those bills come due every single day, and we have to attack this issue on both fronts. Again, we want to work through a solution. We will pay legitimate charges. We will pay what's appropriate. But again, we need to make sure that the legislature understands while they're in session, they're not in session for a very long time, that the issues in front of San Antonio and the state are broader than the repricing. So we felt, and I feel, that the timing of making this lawsuit, so there is clarity about the concerns that we have, had to start there.
Ms. Williams, you said that San Antonio is exposed to $200 million in power charges to the power market. You said that many of the CPS Energy plants were not performing well in cold conditions. Austin Energy, by contrast, had its plants performing and netted $54 million in revenue from the power market. Why was Austin Energy better prepared for this first storm in San Antonio?
Well, I appreciate what they do in Austin Energy. Most utilities have nuances and differences. There are huge differences between Austin and San Antonio. One, we are much larger, so our community consumes much more in terms of the commodity of fuel as well as the power. Additionally, in Austin, the city-owned utility does not run the natural gas system. So what they had to focus on was a smaller subset of what we had to focus on. And the challenges that we had, we needed gas to go both to our natural gas systems and to homes, and we also needed it to power our power plants. On the power side specifically, there's a great example of what we're concerned about here. The numbers keep moving. In some cases, we've had the natural gas number, it maxed out initially at about $840 million, but about $140 million of that never got delivered, and so you never pay for the natural gas that you don't get. So we're now below $700 million on the natural gas side. On the power side, we were at about $200 million, and now it's gone up to $310 million because of these extra challenges on short pays that are sitting out there. Again, this additional thing that's happened in the background, of which CPS Energy has no visibility, no clear visibility in, except for the broad statements about what the list looks like. What we don't know is what's out there behind the current short pays. And ERCOT has a process of being able to short pay the costs and then push them to participants, and then they have a process called uplift. We don't know how big that is. And again, that not having a way to confine that and not having that captured so people can know what that is one thing that we have to protect against. So there's a difference in size and how they ran, and ultimately for us it's gone up. Now I will say that this is a market, and so what we did is we supplied all of our power to San Antonio that was needed. That's what we do. The assets belong to San Antonio. We cover all the needs of San Antonio, and then we sell the excess so that we can make money and bring it back in. In this case, where Austin was able to make more money, I'm sure that they had good timing and that they had the opportunity to optimize some of the high prices in the ERCOT system. Everybody was functioning at that level. But repricing, again, is a complicated thing, and I just think for everybody, the numbers just keep moving around.
How much natural gas did CPS Energy purchase on February 9th, 10th, and 11th, right before that long holiday weekend?
I don't have that detail, but I can give it to you. We were trying to buy gas as much as we could.
You said you raised red flags. When were you trying to buy the natural gas?
We are always trying to buy natural gas, and we were trying to buy it over the weekend, but we can get you that detail.
So you have the statistics on prices during the storm and how much you spent. You still don't have them in the days leading up to the storm.
No, we have them. We'll have to get that to you.
But I can ask them for them.
I don't know who you are, sir, but we'll get them to you.
Seriously, in terms of the numbers, before the settlement with ERCOT was $87 million, you're saying it's got up to $310 million as a result of other power prices not being able, or utilities not being able to pay.
Okay. Well, here's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that happen, and I'm I'm an accountant by trade, so I'm going to try not to make this sound geeky. So the number that we had at 200 million that ultimately grew to 310 million is the net expense for that time frame of power. There are, every day you're buying and selling power all the way through, and then you have a net number ultimately when you get to the end of the event, and that's when the number that's moved a bit on the end. In the process, in the week of the storm, we were purchasing and selling. We got a bill initially from a cash position, like to outlay for settlements from a cash position on the gross amount of what we ultimately sold versus what we paid. And on that bill, there was a day on Thursday, the Thursday bill, where the maximum we would have had to pay was $900 million. $900 million in a market that we were extremely concerned about, and we weren't sure that everyone was performing. The next day, we were going to get $800 million-ish, and that's kind of the net, how you get to the 87. So there was a lot of discussion because we couldn't get assurances that we would be guaranteed to get paid after we paid in. So the overall net, we ended up working with ERCOT at the time, the overall net got to be around $100 million. But when you read some of that stuff about Moody's, we were talking about the cash side of it versus the expense of it. So there was about $100 million from that one and another $100 million that made the $200 million that you saw in the initial filing. But the short pays have now added and made that number bigger at 310. And that's why it worries us that we can have that much of an increase just because of the activity from the other participants.
So I think you just mentioned this, so the $100 million that was paid to counterparties and this like collateral default on something. Before you move, I don't really understand it. I think you just mentioned it. We don't remember those counterparties. It seems like it's outside the ERCOT settlement process.
I don't know if it's outside the ERCOT settlement process. Every member within ERCOT actually, again, you're paying for and you're receiving money for how you perform in the market. And so you can gross up. It's like yeah, you're grossing up the total of the activity, but you also sold. And so the collateral calls, everybody pays in collateral relative to the normal pricing, not relative to this pricing. So people had collateral behind all their transactions, and so did we. Matter of fact, what we were told from ERCOT is they were able to get additional collateral. But you still didn't know who was going to perform or not, and did they have enough collateral. We knew that we had enough cash and access to cash to make it good, but our $200 million at the time could have soared above another $1 billion if we got stuck because people didn't pay us back the next day. So it's a cash issue versus an expense issue.
Let me introduce Lauren Falconer. She is with the litigation team. We also have our city attorney here. If anybody has questions to our attorneys, this might be one of the only times you have an opportunity to talk directly to them.
If ERCOT is to blame for the domino effect of issues related to the winter storm, why are San Antonio families suing CPS Energy for wrongful death and negligence? Anybody think?
Hi, my name is Lauren Valkanar. I'm a partner at the law firm of Chasnoff Stribling. We are outside counsel for CPS Energy. Right now, here today, our focus is ERCOT litigation. We are rigorously focused on getting back and protecting the San Antonio customers and community against excessive costs associated with the excessive prices from ERCOT during the winter storm. That's our focus here today.
But the focus of some San Antonio families is litigation against CPS Energy for wrongful death and negligence. So why are there lawsuits against CPS and not the management of ERCOT?
Typically, we do not comment on ongoing litigation, although we are looking forward to litigating through the court system for those particular lawsuits.
Will your firm handle those lawsuits as well?
We are not involved with those lawsuits.
Can you tell us what relief you're seeking from the judge that was where the district court filed?
Yes, so we are currently seeking to protect against excessive prices being charged against CPS. There currently has been acknowledged a $1 billion mistake, and that is going to be passed along potentially to CPS and to CPS customers. We are seeking to prevent any potential charges that are improper and excessive and protect CPS in paying all legitimate cost.
So, I mean, there's a zero-sum game here, right? So, utilities like Austin Energy that came out ahead, they are going to oppose this, repricing process as strongly as CPS is proposing it. So, I mean, how do you sort of overcome the pushback where you're just shifting costs to other communities around Texas? I mean, how do you sort of overcome that battle you're going to feel from, the other side?
I think that probably is a more appropriate question for Paula.
As we were in the storm trying to address the issues and the terrible experiences that people were having, and all of our focus was trying to keep the power grid up to do and take the instructions that we had, and that's where our focus has been. Now that we've had some time to get out of that issue and again address and listen to our customers and work with them, working through the efforts of our council and our board, we have had time now to go back and analyze what happened. And the price setting and the protocols associated with that event, you can clearly see, and this is the current discussion in Austin, you can clearly see that the state came out of the load shed event, but the prices were held. And if there's a utility net that benefited on that end, and I'm not saying that we didn't sell some power, but they don't have to go to the maximum of $9,000. And I think what this 5-day period has done is highlight that the design solely tried to solve the issues of supply and demand by throwing more dollars at it. And my challenge and my concern about it as the CEO of CPS Energy is nobody sat to think about the people at the end of that process that would get the bills. And I believe that we need reform of this system. Normally, scarcity pricing happens. It happens all the time. Our peak periods are usually June, July, August, and September. But they typically only happen for a part of a day. They typically never happen for an entire day. And so what we're able to do when we're exposed to those prices is smooth them out, and it's not a big deal. The scarcity pricing, the peak of $9,000, which actually there are other peaks, some pricing got to be $25,000 a megawatt hour in the process in the system. They're intended to send signals to generators to ultimately make more investment in the system. And there is an intent to have a supply and demand system. But it didn't stress test out, and nobody connected the fact that the governor put us in disaster mode well before the event happened. And so solely trying to solve the problem with a system that is intended to get to this peak pricing at the time of scarcity, but does not think about the overall impact in the end, is the problem. And while we are very frustrated here in San Antonio, I think the thing that we need to think about this is not just a San Antonio issue. Yes, some entities did well, but many Texans, including those, many of them outside of San Antonio, have felt this impact. Some customers were told by their utilities, here's your high bill, we're going out of business, go find a provider, good luck. That is a signal, and I believe that this issue, I don't have the insight, and I think the lawsuit is about let's get some insight into what we are really facing as a state, because I think this issue is tens of billions of dollars. We have one, but I think there are tens of billions of dollars. And if nothing else, I think we have to get to what were all the issues associated with the process and ultimately get to a better system.
What are some of the consequences for Texas if the legislature doesn't do that?
Can I take one here and then I'll try to get around. Yes.
Some residents have brought to our attention that they're seeing higher bills, now from the month of February, higher than usual. Why is that?
Well, the higher bills are because it was colder, and so we've done some diagnostics on that. When it's colder, people turn up their thermostats. Of people who did have power or had power for additional time, we can see the additional kilowatt hours of usage. It normally happens when there's a storm, and one of the problems though is it was cold for a very long time. But they do not include any of the fuel or power prices on this issue. We're holding those, again, trying to work through these issues. Why are they not a part of our lawsuit? Well, they are the regulator, and they actually have a board member on there, so I believe they will definitely be absolutely connected to this.
Sure. It's Dutch. It's V as in Victor, ALKENAAR. So we've asserted allegations against ERCOT, its board members, and its officers. And as Ms. Gold-Williams pointed out, one of the chair of the PUC currently is included in the lawsuit. I also wanted to follow up on your question. In addition to seeking relief to protect the customers of CPS and CPS from having excessive cost transferred due not only to the excessive price during that 5-day window, but also due to other market participants having to drop out, an increasing price to the other CPS and ultimately its customers. ERCOT currently owes millions of dollars to CPS that we are seeking to recover.
Just got time for one more question, Bill.
Well, I think I mentioned that our CPS Energy had mentioned that it was exploring credit for people who were without power for several days. Do you have an update as to what kind of credit you provided?
Thank you very much. Our team isn't quite done yet, but we will be announcing it. But we realize there's probably no price that would be able to cover all the costs, but we do think it's meaningful that we need to look at and give a credit. So we're looking for the customers that were exposed the longest, had the longest outage. We're going to try to give the highest level of credit possible to them and then work it down. And those who didn't have an outage won't see any additional coverage. But we'll have an update, I think, in the next week or so, and we'll provide that information.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, I got one.